A Tuesday morning, August 10th, 2012, Chongqing, China, 9:37 a.m. Outside a Bank of China branch in the Shoppingba district, a woman named Liao Ding stands in line. She is 42 years old. She has just withdrawn cash. She is thinking about her day. She never makes it home. One shot to the head. She collapses on the sidewalk. Two bystanders are wounded. The shooter takes the money, walks to a waiting pedicab, hands the driver 5 yuan, about 70 cents, and quietly asks him not to answer his phone during the ride. 4 hours later, the same man shoots and kills a railway police officer named Zhu Yanchao, who made the mistake of trying to check his ID on the street. That evening, the man buys a movie ticket and sits in a dark cinema. The next day he calls his girlfriend and says, "Tomorrow I'm going to do one more big thing." His name is Zhou Kehua. By August 10th, 2012, Chinese authorities had been hunting him for 8 years. The Ministry of Public Security had assigned him the highest possible wanted classification, Level A. The reward for his capture had reached 5.4 million yuan. Thousands of officers across 4 provinces had been searching for his face. They knew his name, they had his photograph, they had his DNA, and they still couldn't catch him. This is not a story about a genius. This is not a story about a mastermind. This is a story about what happens when one man has nothing left to lose, and the patience of a stone. To understand Zhou Kehua, you have to understand where he came from, not as an excuse, as a map. On the western edge of Chongqing, on the lower slopes of Mount Gele, overlooking the Jialing River, sits the village of Ertancun. In 1970, it was a place that felt far from everything. No paved roads connecting it to the city below, no reliable electricity, no reason for anyone outside to notice it existed. Zhou Kehua was born there on February 6, 1970, the first day of Chinese New Year. His father had been relocated to the village as punishment. The official record uses the phrase improper lifestyle, the standard bureaucratic language of the era for anything from political dissent to personal behavior. The state found unacceptable. His mother was a divorced woman with 2 children from a previous marriage. The family kept entirely to itself. No community gatherings, no shared celebrations, no presence in village social life. They existed at the edge, in every sense. He was a sickly infant. His grandmother became his primary caretaker through his early years. When he was old enough to move independently, he gravitated to the river. The Jialing was wide and fast-moving, cold even in summer. His closest friend was a boy named Chen Qihong, and together they spent entire days at the water, swimming against the current, catching river crabs with their hands, eating them raw on the rocks. By the time Zhou was a teenager, he was an exceptional swimmer, comfortable alone in the open in a way most people never learn to be. At school, he was quiet and watchful. He kept his word to the few people he trusted. Physically weak, he became obsessed with changing that. Push-ups every morning, sit-ups, runs up the mountain trails before school. He had been told he was too small, too frail. He treated this as a problem to be solved through repetition. He read constantly from the village lending library, martial arts serials, detective fiction, anything about firearms. Not the violence in these stories, but the mechanics, how weapons worked, how people who carried them moved through the world differently from those who didn't. In 1985, he failed the entrance exam for senior high school. He applied twice to the People's Liberation Army, both times rejected on medical grounds. For a young man who had spent years building himself toward discipline and purpose, these rejections were not minor setbacks. They closed a door he had been walking toward his entire adolescence. He went to work in construction, then hauling river sand with his father for 20 yuan a day. And in March of 1986, at 16 years old, he was detained by local police for harassing a woman. 14 days under arrest. He was released and returned to the same life he had left. The next 5 years are mostly blank in the official record. He works, he survives, he reads, he exercises. Nothing moves in any direction. Then, in September of 1991, something changes. Zhou Kehua breaks into the home of a neighbor named Jiangbei. He takes 120 yuan in cash, some food ration coupons, and a hunting rifle. It is the first time he holds a firearm that belongs to him. He keeps it. For 2 years, he keeps the stolen rifle. In March of 1993, he travels to Wuhan, carrying the weapon. Police in the Changsha district stop him for a document check. When they attempt to detain him, he fires a shot into the ground and tries to run. He is caught the same day and sentenced to 2 years in the Hannan Correctional Labor Camp, released early in 1995 for good behavior. He gets a job as a loader at Chongqing North Railway Station. Co-workers describe him as calm, punctual, and solitary, the man who always ate lunch alone in the same corner and spoke only when spoken to. In 1996, he meets and marries a woman named Shu Rong. In 1997, he travels to Yunnan province near the Myanmar border and purchases an unregistered Type 54 pistol from an illegal dealer, the Chinese military's standard sidearm, a copy of the Soviet Tokarev TT-33. He is caught at a checkpoint, fined, and released without prison time. He returns to Chongqing. In 2000, he and Shu Rong invest in a minibus route between Nanping and Changsha. By late 2001, the bus is involved in an accident. Overloaded with passengers, vehicle confiscated, Zhou liable for compensation payments he cannot cover. He has no savings, a criminal record, and a debt he cannot pay. In spring of 2002, he attempts to negotiate a divorce. The conversation goes nowhere, so he does what he has always done when things become impossible. He disappears. He leaves Chongqing without resolution, without settlement, without farewell. He crosses into Myanmar. What Zhou Kehua did in Myanmar between 2002 and 2004 was never fully established by investigators. The border region he entered, northeastern Myanmar, adjacent to Yunnan province, is part of what is commonly called the Golden Triangle. In the early 2000s, this area was controlled by ethnic armed groups, former Kuomintang remnants, and criminal organizations that had operated outside any state authority for generations. According to the reconstruction pieced together by Changsha investigators after 2012, Zhou worked as a hired soldier, escorting drug shipments, weapons, and cash transfers across territory no government effectively controlled. The details were never confirmed in court. What is documented is the transformation in his capabilities between his departure and his return. Before Myanmar, Zhou Kehua was a man who had fired a gun twice in his life. After Myanmar, he could place a single shot into a moving target's head from close range in a crowd, then walk away without running, without drawing attention, without leaving physical evidence at the scene. He could survive weeks in the open. He could study a location for hours without attracting notice. He could disappear into a city of millions without a traceable phone, a registered address, or a single financial transaction. These are not instincts. They are skills that require instruction and practice under conditions where failure is fatal. He returned to China around 2004. He did not contact his wife. He moved quietly using cash, staying in places that didn't require identification. For several months, he was entirely off the grid. Then, in April of 2004, he walked to a bank in Chongqing's Jiangbei district and waited. Before describing what Zhou Kehua did over the next 8 years, it is worth understanding exactly how he did it, because the method was consistent across 9 attacks in 4 provinces, and that consistency is what made him so difficult to catch. He never targeted a bank directly. He targeted people leaving banks. A bank is a controlled environment, cameras on every angle, security at the door, alarm systems. A person walking out with cash is none of those things. They are simply a person on a sidewalk, vulnerable, unaware. Zhou would identify a target bank and then spend hours, sometimes the better part of a full day, watching who entered and who left. He was looking for specific signals, the way a bag moved differently after a transaction, the slight change in body language after a large withdrawal, someone who looked around nervously on the way out. He was patient in a way most people cannot sustain. He could stand in one area for 2 hours without drawing attention by simply behaving like someone who belonged there, reading a newspaper, eating from a street stall, waiting at a bus stop that served his observation point. When he selected a target, he followed them, not closely enough to be noticed, far enough back to abort if something felt wrong. He waited for a moment of isolation, a stretch of sidewalk between groups of pedestrians, a spot without active cameras, a place where a single shot would be absorbed by street noise. Then he closed the distance from behind and fired once. He almost never ran afterward. Running signals panic. Running means someone noticed something. He walked, fast enough to create distance, slow enough not to trigger alarm in bystanders who hadn't yet processed what they had witnessed. He turned corners, used alleyways to break any line of sight, then blended back into foot traffic. He avoided hotels, train stations, and bus terminals for hours after each attack. He slept rough when necessary, parks, abandoned structures, and mountain forests where he had been comfortable since childhood. He paid for everything in cash. He used phones sparingly and only from numbers untraceable to a fixed location. He never used the same escape route twice. This is not improvised behavior. This is a system, and it worked for 8 years. April 22, 2004, Jiangbei District, Chongqing, 12 p.m. 2 women, a cashier and an accountant from a local hotel, exit a bank branch on Wuchuanlu Street carrying 70,000 yuan. Zhou has been watching them. He follows from 20 meters, closes the distance on a quieter stretch, and fires once. The cashier is killed instantly. The accountant is wounded and survives. Zhou takes the money and walks north. Police document the wound profile and method. The weapon appears to be a modified handgun, no usable camera footage, no fingerprints. The description from the surviving victim is vague. Average height, average build, moving away on foot. The case is logged. Investigators find nothing. May 16, 2005. Shapingba District, Chongqing, 9:30 a.m. A married couple exits a bank on Hanyulu Street carrying 170,000 yuan, the largest single sum in the entire case. This suggests Zhou had been watching them specifically, not simply taking the first available target. He follows them from the bank exit. On a stretch of reduced foot traffic, he opens fire. The husband is killed. The wife is killed. A passing bystander is struck and wounded. 3 casualties in a single attack, 2 dead, 170,000 yuan taken. Witness accounts from this scene describe something that appears in no other attack. 2 figures near the scene. A possible accomplice, approximately Zhou's height and build. Whether this was a genuine second attacker, a misidentification in the chaos of aftermath, or 2 people who happened to be in proximity, the investigation never resolved it. No second suspect was ever named or charged. The question remains open. Chongqing police now connect both cases as a series. They assume a single perpetrator. They have no name, no DNA, and no usable photograph. October 2005. The arrest, nobody connected. 5 months after the double killing in Xiaopingba, Zhou Kehua is stopped at Jiangbei railway station in Yunnan province. He is carrying an unregistered Type 54 pistol, a different weapon than the one used in the 1997 incident, and 6 rounds of ammunition. The Kunming Railway Court sentences him to 3 years in prison. He enters the detention facility. The Chongqing murders remain unsolved. The connection between the man now sitting in a Kunming cell and the Jiangbei and Xiaopingba killings is not yet made by any investigator. It will not be made for years. The prison booking photograph, taken under fluorescent light in a processing room, becomes, by default, the only official image of Zhou Kehua in existence. This photograph, of a 35-year-old man staring directly into a camera with no visible expression, will appear on every wanted poster, every news broadcast, every police alert issued across China for the next 7 years. In April 2008, 6 months before his sentence officially ended, Zhou Kehua is released early for good behavior. He walks out and disappears. The facility in Kunming was not maximum security. It housed primarily economic offenders, minor criminals, and people caught transporting contraband. Zhou Kehua was, on paper, exactly that. Inmates who shared space with him described him consistently. Quiet with guards, aggressive with other prisoners if challenged directly, fast and efficient in any assigned labor, physically relentless. He did push-ups at fixed times every day. He ran in place when there was no other option. He spoke Mandarin and the Yunnan dialect interchangeably, which made him geographically harder to place. He told cellmates he had been to the casinos of Myanmar, that the money was good, that after his release he planned to return. He did not return to Myanmar. What he did instead, in the months between April 2008 and March 2009, is not documented. He used no registered address, no traceable phone, no financial system that left a record. He moved, he observed, he prepared, and then, on a cold morning in March 2009, he killed a teenage soldier and took his rifle. March 19, 2009, Shiqiaopu District, Chongqing. Private Han Junliang was 18 years old. He was stationed at a military garrison post in the Shiqiaopu area, routine duty in a city, not a combat zone. He was standing at his post when Zhou Kehua shot him and took his weapon. The weapon was a Type 81-1 assault rifle, the standard Chinese infantry arm of the era, modeled on the Soviet AKM platform, firing 7.62 by 39 mm rounds from a 30-round magazine. It is a weapon designed for sustained combat at distances far beyond anything a pistol can reach. On April 27th, Zhou hid the rifle in the mountains of Nanjing district on the south bank of the Yangtze. He did not use it again, or if he did, no confirmed attack was linked to it. He kept it as insurance, possibly as backup for a situation requiring firepower beyond a handgun. The Ministry of Public Security reviewed the attack and reclassified Zhou's case. He was no longer a robbery-murder suspect. He was now classified as a terrorist threat. A Level A wanted notice was issued, the highest designation in the Chinese criminal justice system. His face appeared on billboards. His case was elevated to simultaneous priority status across Chongqing, Hunan, Jiangsu, and Yunnan. The stolen Type 81-1 has never been found. In autumn of 2009, Zhou Kehua moved his operations to Changsha, capital of Hunan province, roughly 800 kilometers northeast of Chongqing. The logic was cold and practical. No history there, no prior arrests, no family connections, no informants who recognized his face. In a city of 7 million people, he was nobody. He slept rough. He ate from street stalls, paying cash, eating quickly, moving on. He studied bank branches the way a surveyor studies terrain, observing shift changes, camera positions, foot traffic patterns at different times of day, the gap in seconds between a customer completing a transaction and reaching the street. October 14, 2009, Nanjiao Park, Changsha. An older man is walking near the park on a clear autumn afternoon. He is shot 6 times. No robbery takes place. No money is taken. No bag grabbed. Zhou fires 6 rounds into a single stationary target and walks away. Investigators examining the full case pattern later concluded Zhou was likely testing the pistol he was currently carrying, verifying accuracy, trigger response, and reliability at a specific distance. The man in the park was not chosen for what he carried. He was chosen because he was there, alone, and the location was quiet. The man dies from his wounds. December 4, 2009. Furong South Road, Changsha. Zhou watched the area for nearly 2 hours before moving. A man named Guo Chaoyun exits a bank with 45,000 yuan. He makes it 30 meters. 1 shot to the head. Guo Chaoyun dies on the street. The money is taken. During the subsequent investigation, Changsha police pulled security footage from hundreds of cameras, traffic systems, bank exteriors, shop entrances, residential gates, and built a minute-by-minute map of foot traffic around the crime scene. In the feed from an internet cafe 2 blocks away, captured 40 minutes before the attack, they found a clear frontal image of Zhou Kehua's face, fully illuminated by the monitor in front of him. He had not noticed the camera, or he had calculated that it wouldn't matter. For the first time since 2004, police had a face they could show to the public. October 25, 2010, Hunan Huancheng Company, Changsha. The general manager of a mid-sized company is shot and killed at his office. A laptop is taken along with minimal cash. This attack breaks slightly from the established pattern. The target is inside a workplace rather than on the street. The financial yield was low relative to the risk. Zhou had been watching this man specifically, having identified him as someone who moved significant sums. The cash on hand that day was not. June 28, 2011, Changsha. A 48-year-old man named Zhang steps out of a Lexus on a Changsha street. He is shot once in the head and once in the lower back. He does not die. He is the only victim in the entire 9-attack series to survive with a functional memory of the event and a usable description of the attacker. His survival is, in the context of this case, a singular anomaly. During this entire period in Changsha, while killing and wounding people on the streets, Zhou Kehua was regularly calling his ex-wife back in Chongqing. He kept the calls short, used untraceable numbers, and always asked the same things. Was their son doing well in school? Was he healthy? Was he growing? He was a father asking about his child, calling from a city where he had just killed people. In August 2011, Zhou Kehua's father was dying. He came back to Chongqing. By this point, Zhou was the most wanted man in China. His face was on Level A bulletins distributed to every police unit in the country. Chongqing, his home city, where he had committed his first murders, was the city where investigators were most specifically focused. Returning was the most operationally dangerous decision he could make. He returned anyway. From August through September 6th, the date of his father's death, Zhou was present at the hospital in the Jiangbei area. He sat at the bedside. He was seen by family members, by neighbors who came to pay their respects, by people who knew exactly who he was and what he had been accused of. None of them called the police. His father died on September 6th. Zhou attended the funeral. He stood at the grave. At the graveside, in front of relatives who later recounted the moment to investigators, Zhou said, "I'm already past 40, and I couldn't even save up money for my father's funeral. I'm a bad son." He was not performing. The people present that day described genuine devastation. Whatever Zhou Kehua had become, whatever the years in Myanmar, the 9 attacks, the 11 bodies had made of him, at his father's grave, he was a son who believed he had failed the person who mattered most to him. After the funeral, he moved to his ex-wife's apartment in Chongqing. He stayed for approximately 1 month. He rarely left. He watched action films, Rambo, Saving Private Ryan, military titles he had apparently seen multiple times before. He read issues of a Chinese firearms magazine called Light Weapons and the national newspaper Reference News. He visited internet cafes in the neighborhood, always paying cash, never staying long. He took his son, a boy in his early teens who bore his father's surname and knew nothing about what that surname now meant in Chinese police databases, on hikes through the mountain trails above the city. The same trails Zhou had run as a teenager. When he said goodbye to his ex-wife before leaving, he told her, "I'm going to go earn some big money." She believed him. She would tell investigators this later, that she assumed some opportunity, some connection she didn't know about. She believed, or needed to believe, that he had a plan that didn't involve what he had been doing. On January 19, 2012, his mother ran into him by chance on a Chongqing street. She mentioned that police had come to the house inquiring about his national ID card renewal. He looked at her calmly and said, "I know, I'll still need it." That same day, he went to a sporting goods store and bought a tent, a sleeping bag, a foam sleeping mat, and a camouflage backpack. He paid cash and left no name. The next morning, he was gone. January 6, 2012, Nanjing, Jiangsu Province, 9:50 a.m. A man employed by a construction company exits a branch of the Agricultural Bank of China on Heian Street carrying 199,900 yuan, the largest single sum involved in any of Zhou's 9 attacks. He has just completed a significant business transaction. He is thinking about his day. Zhou shoots him once in the head. The man dies on the sidewalk. Zhou then does something he has never done before. He flags down a passing city bus, forces the passengers off at gunpoint, drives it several blocks, and abandons it in traffic. He continues on foot. The attack is national news within hours. Politburo Standing Committee member Zhou Kehua, who oversaw domestic security, personally demanded results. Public Security Minister Meng Jianzhu issued a direct operational order to law enforcement across multiple provinces. Find this man. Nanjing police identified a mountain area on the city's outskirts where Zhou appeared to have been camping. A cleared sleeping area, days of accumulated debris, food packaging from nearby stores. Forensic teams processed the site carefully. They found a military magazine, a newspaper, food wrappers with supermarket barcodes, and human feces. From the feces, they extracted DNA. The barcodes led to specific store locations. The stores had security cameras. The cameras showed Zhou Kehua entering, selecting items, and paying at the register. Face visible, timestamp recorded. They had him on camera buying food 4 days before a murder he committed a kilometer away. Simultaneously, the Chongqing investigation team was running a separate operation, cross-checking a national database of citizens overdue for identity card renewals. Zhou Kehua's name appeared in the system. Investigators visited his relatives in Chongqing and collected DNA samples. The comparison against the Nanjing forensic sample confirmed a match. After years of fragments, partial descriptions, ballistics comparisons, partial camera images, the entire case had a single confirmed name attached to every piece of it. Zhou, apparently aware that something had shifted in the investigation, was already moving. On January 10th, he was captured on camera again buying clothes at a Nanjing supermarket. On January 15th, he boarded a long-distance bus to Ertancun in Anhui province, spending 3 days and 240 yuan on food and modest lodging. On January 18th, he boarded another bus, back to Chongqing. Sometime in early 2012, after returning to Chongqing, Zhou Kehua walked into a small barbershop in the Jiangbei district. The woman cutting hair was 19 years old. Her name was Zhang Guiyin, originally from Yiban, living in Chongqing for less than a year. She had little formal education, no stable connections in the city, and no safety net of any kind. He tipped generously. He came back. He tipped generously again. Within weeks, they were spending time outside the shop. Within a month, they were in a relationship. He transferred 200,000 yuan into a bank account Zhang opened at his direction. The money was from the Nanjing robbery. He told her this. He told her where the money came from. He told her about the killings. Her response, according to her own testimony at trial, was admiration. Zhang suffered from epilepsy, a condition that had limited her options throughout her young life. In the months between their meeting and August 2012, she functioned as something close to a ground-level intelligence asset, sending him SMS messages, reporting police activity she observed on streets near his location, noting patrol patterns, flagging anything that seemed operationally relevant. She was not a trained operative. She was a 19-year-old woman with a phone. But in the daily life of a man existing permanently on the edge of exposure, that kind of real-time street-level information had genuine value. She was convicted on March 22, 2013, 5 years in prison for concealing and harboring stolen assets. The 200,000 yuan transfer was the primary evidence. The court considered how much she knew about the full extent of his crimes. 5 years was the sentence. Between January and August 2012, Zhou Kehua lived primarily in the mountains above Chongqing, in the forests on the slopes of Mount Gele, which he had known since childhood. The tent and sleeping bag purchased in January were his primary shelter. He came down into the city for supplies and reconnaissance, moving through Shapingba with the confidence of a man who had grown up on these streets. The manhunt around him was the largest Chongqing had seen in a generation. Thousands of officers deployed across multiple operations. The 5.4 million yuan reward was publicized on billboards carrying his face. Every hotel, every rental apartment, every guest house in the city had received his photograph. Neighborhood committees had been briefed. He slept in a tent in the forest and came down when he needed to. In the weeks before August 10th, he focused his observation on the Bank of China branch in Shapingba. He knew this neighborhood better than anywhere else in the world. The camera positions, the patrol schedules, the alleys that cut between streets, the bus routes that bypassed main intersections. He was not operating in unfamiliar territory. He was operating on the ground where he had been born. Zhang Guiyin was sending updates. He called her regularly, keeping conversations short. On the evening of August 13th, one day before his death, police monitoring communications in the Shapingba area intercepted their phone call. He told her, "Tomorrow, I'm going to do one more big thing." In his jacket pocket, there was already a handwritten note, a hand-drawn map and written directions to a bank branch in Jiangbei district. He had identified his next target. He had already begun the observation process. He found a place to sleep in Shapingba that night. He set an alarm. He intended to wake up and do it again. 9:37 a.m. Liao Daying, 42 years old, a Chongqing resident with a family and a Tuesday morning and a bag with 70,000 yuan in it, exits the Bank of China branch in Shapingba. She makes it approximately 30 meters. Zhou closes from behind, one shot to the head. She falls. 2 bystanders in the immediate vicinity are wounded. Zhou steps over the scene, takes the money, and walks south on the main street. At the corner, he flags down a pedicab and climbs in. He hands the driver 5 yuan and says, quietly and without apparent agitation, "Please don't answer your phone while you're driving." The driver drops him at a petrol station 6 blocks from the bank. Zhou pays, gets out, and continues on foot. At approximately 1 p.m., Zhou encounters railway police officer Zhu Yanchao, 30 years old, conducting a routine patrol in the Shapingba area. Zhu stops him for an ID check. Zhou draws his weapon and fires 3 shots. Zhu Yanchao is killed on the street. Zhou walks away. That afternoon, he goes to a cinema in the Shapingba commercial district and buys a ticket to a film called The Wind Listener. He sits in the dark and watches it. He keeps the stub. On August 13th, he returns to the same cinema and buys a ticket to a second film, Space One. He keeps this stub too. Both tickets will be found in his jacket pocket when he dies the following morning. On the evening of August 10th, a young woman called the Chongqing police tip line. She had seen a man matching Zhou's description in the Guanyinqiao shopping area and was specific about location, time, and clothing. Police pulled the relevant camera footage and showed it to Zhou's ex-wife, who confirmed it was him. The anonymous caller received 600,000 yuan in reward money, the single largest individual payout in the case. For the next 3 days, Chongqing deployed what became the largest police operation in the city's modern history. The command structure made a deliberate decision: stage a large visible deployment near Mount Gele. Cameras, uniformed officers, vehicles, the full theater of a manhunt. The mountain was where they were looking. That was the message. The real operation was quieter. 4 plainclothes officers in rotating pairs running surveillance shifts through the residential streets of Changsha. No uniforms, no marked vehicles. 2 people walking, looking like residents. August 14, 2012, 6:40 a.m. Officers Wang Xiaoyu and Zhou Jin are positioned near a post office in a residential section of Changsha when a man walks past. The way he moves, the set of his shoulders, the pace, not hurried, not slow, calibrated in a way that most people's walks are not. They fall in behind him. He walks 1 block, 2 blocks, turns onto a smaller street, turns again onto a narrower one. The buildings press closer. The street angles slightly downward. At the end of it, a wall. The alley is called Mojungo. In the neighborhood, people call it Lettuce Lane. It is a dead end. There is no exit except the way in. Zhou Kehua walks to the end of the alley and stops because there is nowhere left to go. He turns around. He sees Wang Xiaoyu and Zhou Jin behind him. He raises his weapon and fires 3 times. All 3 rounds miss. Both officers return fire. 4 shots total from approximately 3 meters. 2 rounds connect, 1 to the head, 1 to the abdomen. Zhou Kehua falls against the wall. He does not immediately lose consciousness. He speaks. 4 words: Zhou Kehua. I turned the wrong way. He died in the alley, 3 kilometers from the village where he was born, at the bottom of a dead-end street in the district where he grew up, on the mountain he had climbed since he was a child. The time was 6:50 a.m. Investigators processed the scene and the body. In the black shoulder bag, 2 pistols, a modified Type 54 copy, and a 9mm service weapon, 3 loaded magazines, 62 rounds of ammunition, enough for a sustained firefight. In his jacket pockets, the handwritten note with the route to the Jiangbei District Bank. Over 10,000 yuan in cash. 2 movie ticket stubs, one from August 12th, one from August 13th. He had gone to the cinema twice in the 4 days between his last killing and his death. He had sat in the dark and watched films while thousands of officers searched the city for him. The Type 81-1 assault rifle stolen from Private Han Junliang in March 2009 was not among the items recovered. Zhou's ex-wife told investigators he had once mentioned burying it somewhere in the mountains of Changsha. Search operations in the relevant area found no trace of it. The rifle has never been recovered. DNA testing confirmed the identity of the body. The results were published officially. The case was formally closed. The photographs leaked within days. Someone released 3 images from the forensic processing of the scene. Zhou Kehua's face from multiple angles, the head wound clearly visible. Chinese social media in August 2012 had minimal content moderation. The images spread without restriction. The conspiracy theories followed immediately. The body had been staged. The man in the photographs was not Zhou Kehua. A name circulated for the supposed real victim, a police officer named Fang Bin, alleged to have been killed and dressed in Zhou's clothing. On August 21st, a Yunnan television program addressed the conspiracy directly on air, then cut to footage of Fang Bin alive and in uniform, speaking into a camera. Chongqing authorities released the full DNA comparison results. Forensic samples matched the DNA collected from Zhou's relatives in Chongqing and from the biological material found at his Nanjing campsite. The identification was triple confirmed. The theories did not entirely disappear. They rarely do in cases where the scale of official failure is large enough that some portion of the public finds an alternative explanation easier to accept than the straightforward one. The straightforward one was this: one man with a pistol and patience killed 11 people across 4 Chinese provinces over 8 years, and the most sophisticated law enforcement system in the world's most populous country could not stop him until he walked into a dead-end alley at 6:50 in the morning. 9 attacks, 4 provinces: Chongqing, Hunan, Jiangsu, Yunnan. 11 people killed, 4 people wounded. Across the documented robberies, 70,000 in Jiangbei, 170,000 in Shepingba, 45,000 in Changsha, 199,900 in Nanjing, and 70,000 in the final attack. The confirmed total stolen exceeds 550,000 yuan. Additional attacks, where the precise sum was not publicly disclosed, pushed the real figure higher. One man hunted by thousands. A reward of 5.4 million yuan uncollected for 8 years, until a young woman made a phone call from a shopping district and collected 600,000 yuan of it. The active period spans April 2004 to August 2012. Remove the 3 years Zhou spent in the Kunming prison, during which he was, by definition, no threat to anyone, and the operational timeline is 5 years. 5 years, 9 attacks, 11 dead. Approximately 1 killing every 6 months, on average. In between, forests, riverbanks, mountain trails, cheap street food, internet cafes, movie theaters, phone calls to an ex-wife asking about a son's schoolwork. In 2013, Chinese director Jia Jiangbei released A Touch of Sin, 4 interconnected stories about violence in contemporary China. One character, a drifting man who kills without apparent emotion and moves through the country like a ghost, is drawn directly from Zhou Kehua. The film won Best Screenplay at Cannes. It was banned in China. A later Chinese crime series, I Am a Detective, features a villain named Zhou Kehua, a character so visibly modeled on Zhou that the changed name convinced no one. It was among the highest-rated Chinese crime dramas of its broadcast year. These adaptations tell us something about what Zhou Kehua became in the cultural imagination of China, a figure representing something beyond the crimes themselves, a crack in the official story of order and progress, a man who refused to be caught for years while the machinery of the state turned around him. But the actual record does not support mythology of any kind. Zhou Kehua was not a rebel. He was not a symptom of political failure, though he emerged from real poverty and real marginalization. He was not a genius who outwitted the system. He was a man who learned to be patient, to be invisible, to shoot accurately, and applied those 3 things to killing people who had done nothing to him in order to take their money. He hid in the mountains. He slept in the cold. He ate very little. He called his son from untraceable numbers. He went to the cinema. He waited. And 11 people are dead who would not otherwise be dead. A cashier in Jiangbei, a husband and wife in Shepingba, a teenage soldier at his post, an older man walking in a park, a man who stepped out of a Lexus, a company manager at his office, a construction worker carrying 200,000 yuan, a 42-year-old woman on a Tuesday morning, a police officer doing his job, None of them knew the name Zhou Kehua. Somewhere in the mountains above Chongqing, a Type 81-1 assault rifle is still buried. The case is closed. The rifle is not found. Zhou Kehua was born in Ertancun village, Mount Gele, Chongqing, on February 6, 1970. He died in Lettuce Lane, Shapingba, Chongqing, on August 14, 2012. He never left.